First Contact Fiasco. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of Earth's diplomatic vessel Humble Beginning, fighting to keep her expression neutral as the Galactic Council representatives circled her ship with barely concealed disdain. At just under 200 meters long, the Humble Beginning was indeed small compared to the kilometer-long behemoths of the Council races, but that had been humanity's choice, not their limitation. "You cannot seriously expect us to believe this is your flagship," Ambassador Zextal of the Kraxan Empire declared, his bioluminescent patches flashing with amusement. The towering arthropoid gestured with one of his 4 arms at the holographic display, showing Earth's entire space fleet. "These are escort vessels, surely." "These are our ships of the line, Ambassador," Chen replied evenly. 20 years of diplomatic service helped her maintain her composure. "We find them quite adequate for our needs." The Council Chamber, a vast zero-gravity sphere at the heart of Junction Station, filled with the various sounds of alien amusement. Chen catalogued them all: the crystalline chiming of Merrick's laughter, the subsonic rumbles of Kraxan mirth, the high-pitched trilling of the Vexari. Only the Athid representative remained silent, their compound eyes studying the human ships with unnerving intensity. "Adequate." First Speaker Merrick's Tai Sol's crystalline form sparkled with what Chen had learned was their equivalent of incredulous laughter. "Your largest vessel would fit in our cargo holds. How do you expect to defend your territories with such modest capabilities?" Chen shared a knowing look with her XO, Commander David Patel, who stood quietly at her side. They'd expected this reaction. After all, humanity had spent the last 50 years watching the galaxy, learning, before making first contact. They knew how the Council races thought. Bigger was always better, more impressive, more powerful. They didn't understand Deathworld engineering. "We appreciate your concern," Chen said diplomatically. "But we found that size isn't everything. Efficiency and adaptability have served us well." Before the Council could respond, emergency signals flashed throughout the chamber. A Vexari communications officer burst through the gravity field, their feathers raised in alarm. First Speaker, "We've lost contact with the Outer Rim monitoring stations. All of them." Simultaneously, the chamber erupted in chaos. Chen watched as the Council races scrambled to make sense of the information pouring in. She'd seen this pattern before, in humanity's simulations of first contact scenarios. Something was hunting at the edges of known space. "How many stations?" the First Speaker demanded. 43, spread across 12 sectors. The officer replied. "Just gone. No distress signals, no debris fields. Nothing." Chen cleared her throat. "If I may, First Speaker." Earth's long-range detection arrays picked up some unusual readings from that region 3 days ago. "We tried to transmit the data, but were told our primitive sensors must be malfunctioning." The chamber fell silent. The Athid representative stepped forward, their mandibles clicking softly. "Show us." Chen nodded to Patel, who projected a complex quantum mapping of the affected region. The display showed something the Council's sensors hadn't detected: subtle distortions in spacetime, moving with purpose. "Impossible," a Kraxan scientist declared. "Our sensors are the most advanced in known space. If there was something there, we would have." "Your sensors are calibrated for what you expect to find," Chen interrupted gently. "Coming from a death world, humans tend to look for what we hope isn't there." The First Speaker's crystalline surface clouded with concern. "You believe you know what this is?" "Not exactly," Chen admitted. "But we recognize the pattern. It's hunting behavior. Whatever it is, it's intelligent. It's careful, and it's testing defenses. Those stations weren't randomly chosen. They represent key points in your early warning network." "And how would you know that?" Ambassador Zextal demanded. "Because it's what we would look for if we were planning an invasion," Paddle spoke up for the first time. "High-value, low-risk targets that blind your enemy without revealing your full capabilities." The Council chamber erupted in outraged protests, But Chen noticed the Athid representative moving closer to Earth's delegation. "You speak from experience," they observed quietly. Chen nodded. Earth's history is full of examples where a technologically inferior force defeated a superior one through careful strategy and unconventional tactics. We had to become very good at thinking like predators to survive our world. And right now, all my instincts are saying there's a predator testing the galaxy's defenses. And your small ships. The Athid's compound eyes flickered with interest. There is more to them than appears. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Let's just say that humanity learned long ago that it's not the size of the ship that matters. It's how cleverly you use it. As if to punctuate her words, another alert filled the chamber. 3 more sectors had gone dark. The first speaker's voice cut through the panic. "Admiral Chen, perhaps we should discuss your experiences with predators in more detail." "Of course," Chen replied, watching as the council races finally began to understand that their mighty vessels and advanced sensors meant nothing against an enemy that thought like a hunter. "But first, let me tell you why humans build small ships and what that tells you about how we fight." The Silent Hunter. 2 weeks after the initial disappearances, Admiral Chen watched the Council's massive war fleets patrol the Outer Rim with all the subtlety of thundering herds. Their enormous ships blazed with energy signatures, active sensors prodding every sector of space, while Earth's small flotilla hung quiet in the darkness, waiting. "They're still broadcasting on all frequencies," Commander Paddle remarked from his station aboard the Humble Beginning. "Might as well put up a sign saying, 'Here we are. Come eat us.'" "Old habits die hard," Chen replied, studying the tactical display. The Council races had deployed their most powerful vessels, huge, gleaming machines of war that could supposedly stand toe-to-toe with anything in the galaxy. But they were looking for something that fought like them. And that was their first mistake. The Humble Beginning's passive sensors picked up the distortion before any of the Council's active arrays detected it. A subtle ripple in space-time, almost like watching heat waves rise from hot pavement. Chen had seen something similar in the deep oceans of Earth, where predatory fish used light and pressure distortions to conceal their approach. "Contact," her sensor officer whispered. "Bearing 037, moving parallel to the Kraxan defense line." "They don't see it." Chen opened a channel to the Council flagship. "First speaker, be advised we're tracking an anomaly near your 3rd battle group. Recommend immediate shutdown of active sensors and power reduction across all vessels." "Preposterous," came the reply from Admiral Zextal, who'd taken personal command of the Kraxan forces. "Our sensors show nothing but normal space. Besides, powering down would leave us blind and defenseless. Your active sensors are creating a background noise that's masking their approach," Chen insisted. "They're using your own energy emissions too." The Kraxan's 3rd battle group vanished, not with a bang, not with a flash of weapons fire, but with a silence so profound it felt like a physical blow. One moment, 15 ships and their crews were there. The next, they simply ceased to exist, leaving behind nothing but rapidly dissipating energy readings that Chen's sensors barely caught. "All Council vessels, emergency protocol Sierra Hotel Alpha," Chen barked into the comm. "Cut power. Now." Perhaps it was the shock of losing 15 ships without a shot being fired, or maybe some of them had finally started to understand. But this time the Council ships obeyed. One by one, the massive vessels went dark, their energy signatures dropping to minimal levels. In the sudden electronic silence, they all saw it. The thing that moved through their defense line was vast, but not in the way Council ships were vast. It seemed to exist in layers, each one slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. It didn't so much fly as flow, like oil through water, leaving behind distortions that hurt the eyes to look at. "By the first egg," someone whispered on the open channel. "What is it?" "A hunter," Chen replied softly, watching as her crew implemented the protocols they'd drilled for years. "One that's evolved beyond our understanding of physics. Notice how it moves. It's not using our kind of propulsion. It's manipulating the space around it. Then we're defenseless. Admiral Zextel's voice had lost its usual arrogance. If it can manipulate space itself. No, Chen interrupted. We're not defenseless. We're just fighting it the wrong way. She opened a channel to her small fleet. All Earth vessels, implement Mongoose Protocol. Patel allowed himself a grim smile. They're going to think we're insane. They already think that, Chen replied. Helm, take us in. Nice and quiet. The Humble Beginning and her sister ships began to move, but not like conventional vessels. Instead of lighting up their main drives, they used short, precise bursts from maneuvering thrusters, mimicking the movement of debris. Their hulls, designed to absorb rather than reflect energy, made them nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Admiral Chen, the first speaker's voice, held a note of panic. What are you doing? Has anyone in the council ever heard of a mongoose? Chen asked conversationally, as her ships continued their subtle approach toward the massive hunter. Small Earth predator. Hunts snakes much larger than itself. The trick isn't to overpower your larger enemy. It's to be faster, smarter, and willing to do something they'd never expect. The hunter was moving again, flowing toward another group of council ships that had powered down too late. But this time, something caught its attention. It paused, rippling in space as it sensed the small Earth ships approaching from multiple vectors. Now, Chen ordered. Earth's ships didn't power up their weapons. They didn't need to. Instead, they fired what appeared to be simple probes, hundreds of them, surrounding the hunter in a three-dimensional grid. Each probe activated, creating a localized field that did one simple thing. It enforced normal space-time physics within its radius. The hunter's layered existence suddenly slammed into normal space. Its impossible geometries tried to exist in dimensions that were no longer accessible. The result was like watching a soap bubble pop in slow motion, as the entity was forced to exist in only 4 dimensions. All ships, pattern Delta, Chen commanded. Now Earth's vessels revealed their true nature. What had appeared to be simple hull plating reconfigured itself, revealing weapons specifically designed to attack targets in normal space. The hunter, trapped in a grid of localized physics, found itself facing opponents that had studied Earth's most dangerous predators for millennia. Impossible. Admiral Zextel breathed as he watched the small Earth ships execute a coordinated attack that looked more like a pack of wolves bringing down larger prey than a space battle. Those weapons, their phase-shifted quantum torpedoes. The power requirements alone are quite reasonable when you don't waste energy on making your ships unnecessarily large, Chen replied calmly. Humans learned long ago that efficiency trumps raw power. Our ships are small because every cubic meter has a purpose. No wasted space, no redundant systems, no concern for looking impressive. Just pure functionality. The hunter tried to fight back, but it was like watching a 4-dimensional being try to swim through 2-dimensional space. Earth's ships darted in and out, their attacks coordinated with inhuman precision, each strike targeting what their sensors identified as critical points in the entity's structure. When it was over, the hunter did not explode. It simply came apart, its impossible geometry dissolving into normal spacetime, leaving behind readings that would keep scientists busy for decades. Signal from the probes, Paddle reported. They've mapped the hunter's energy signature. We can track others like it now. Chen nodded, then addressed the stunned council. I believe we need to have a serious discussion about updating your defensive protocols, and perhaps about reconsidering the value of having small ships in your fleet. The silence from the council ships was broken only by the Athid representative. I believe, Admiral Chen, that we have much to learn about the advantages of thinking small. Deathworld tactics. The Council's war room aboard Junction Station had changed dramatically in the month since the first Hunter's defeat. Gone were the grandiose holographic displays showing the mighty Council fleets. Instead, the walls were covered with Earth-style tactical maps, showing patrol patterns inspired by wolf pack hunting behaviors. Another one neutralized in the Carina sector, Commander Puddle reported, updating the tactical display. Little red dots marked confirmed hunter kills, forming a pattern that was becoming clearer with each engagement. That makes 7 in total. 8. Admiral Chen corrected, studying the map. The Athid just reported success with their new hybrid fleet. The Athid had been the first to adopt Earth's tactics, retrofitting their smallest vessels with human design systems. Their success had sent shockwaves through the Council. Now, other races were scrambling to follow suit, though many still resisted the idea of diminishing their mighty warships. Admiral Chen, first speaker Merrick's Tai Sol's crystalline form approach, accompanied by Admiral Zextal. We've reviewed the combat data from the last 3 encounters. There's something we don't understand. Only 3 things. Patil muttered under his breath, earning a subtle smile from Chen. Your ships, Zextal began, his bioluminescence pulsing with confusion. The power readings make no sense. You're generating weapon yields that should require engines 10 times your size. It defies basic physics. No, Chen corrected gently. It defies your understanding of physics. Tell me, Admiral, why do your ships have such massive engine sections? To generate the power needed for our weapons and shields, obviously, he replied. The energy requirements are based on brute force approaches, Chen interrupted. You're trying to overpower physics. We learn to work with it instead. She gestured to a hologram of a standard Earth vessel. Notice how our engine design differs from yours. You use massive reaction chambers to force energy conversion. We use layered fields to catalyze it instead. Less power required, more efficient output. Impossible. A Kraxan engineer protested. The containment fields alone would be unstable in your designs. Pahil agreed. Because you're thinking in terms of holding something back. We think in terms of directing flow. Chen pulled up a comparison display. Look at your engine design. All that power, held in by brute force. Now, look at ours. See how the fields interlock. It's like the difference between trying to stop a river with a dam versus directing it through channels. A Deathworld principle. The Athid representative clicked thoughtfully. On hostile worlds, those who fight their environment die. Those who learn to work with it survive. Exactly, Chen nodded. Humanity learned that lesson through millions of years of evolution. Every time we tried to overpower nature, we failed. When we learned to work with natural forces, to redirect them instead of fighting them, we thrived. An alert sounded, interrupting the discussion. 3 hunters had appeared in the Orient sector, moving with purpose toward populated systems. Perfect timing for a demonstration, Chen said. First speaker, with your permission, I'd like to show you exactly how Deathworld tactics work against superior forces. The council members followed her to the Tactical Control Center, where she quickly laid out a battle plan that made several admirals visibly uncomfortable. You want to use our primary defense fleet as bait. Zextal's bioluminescence flashed with alarm. I want to use their expectations against them, Chen corrected. Your big ships make perfect targets. They'll sense all that power and come to investigate. Meanwhile, she gestured to where Earth's ships and the new Athid hybrid vessels were moving into position, running dark. The mongoose hunts the snake. The Athid representative clicked in understanding. The battle that followed would be studied in war colleges across the galaxy for centuries to come. The Council's massive ships, running at full power, drew the hunters exactly as planned. But instead of the easy prey they expected, they found themselves engaged in a dance of death with opponents they could barely detect. Earth's ships moved like marine predators, using the gravity wells of nearby planets and stars to slingshot into attack positions. The Athid vessels, learning quickly, mimicked their tactics. Together, they demonstrated warfare that looked more like a coordinated predator pack than traditional space combat. Remarkable. First speaker Merrick's Tai Sol observed as the last hunter dissolved under the combined attack. Your ships aren't just small to be efficient. They're small because it makes them better hunters. Size is rarely an advantage in nature, Chen explained. The most successful predators are usually smaller than their prey. They succeed through speed, agility, and intelligence. A lesson we're learning well, the Athid representative added. Our new hybrid fleet has proven more effective than our entire traditional navy. The tactical display updated, showing more hunter signatures appearing at the galaxy's edge. But now, instead of panic, the Council races watched with growing confidence as Earth's doctrine spread through their combined fleets. They're still coming, Zextal observed, his earlier disdain replaced with grudging respect. But they're no longer finding the easy prey they expected. No, Chen agreed, watching as more Council races began adopting Earth's tactics. Instead, they're learning what every predator that challenged Earth eventually learned. And what is that? The first speaker asked. Sometimes the smallest predators are the most dangerous. Chen smiled as she watched another hunter signature wink out under attack from ships a fraction of its size, especially when they hunt in packs. The hunter becomes hunted. The hunters had made a fatal mistake. Like so many apex predators before them, they'd failed to recognize when their prey had learned to fight back. They're changing their patterns, Commander Patel observed, tracking multiple hunter signatures across the galactic map. No more isolated attacks. They're gathering in groups. Admiral Chen nodded, watching as red dots converged into clusters. After 3 months of losses, the hunters had finally adapted their strategy. Unfortunately for them, this was exactly what Earth's tactical AI had predicted. They're learning, she agreed, but they're learning the wrong lessons. First speaker, are the combined fleets in position? First speaker Merrick's Tysol's crystalline form glittered with anticipation. All ships report ready. Though I must admit, many still question this strategy. Deliberately opening holes in our defense line seems counterintuitive. The best trap is one the prey thinks they've discovered for themselves, Chen quoted, an old Earth saying from when we were still hunting on the savannas. The tactical display showed the fruits of 3 months' hard work. The Council races had transformed their fleets, incorporating Earth's principles of efficiency and stealth. Even the Kraxon, the last holdouts of the bigger is better philosophy, had retrofitted their smallest vessels with human-designed systems. Multiple hunter groups moving through sectors 7 through 12, a sensor operator reported. They're taking the bait. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The hunters had noticed the apparent gaps in the defense grid, gaps that had been carefully crafted to look like mistakes made by overconfident defenders. Just like clockwork, Patel murmured, predictable as a shark scenting blood. The hunters moved exactly as expected, their groups flowing through the seemingly undefended corridors of space. Their confidence was evident in their movement patterns. No more cautious probing, no more testing of defenses. They thought they'd found weakness. All ships, execute Operation Mongoose Prime, Chen commanded. Across 12 sectors of space, hundreds of small ships emerged from their hiding places in asteroid fields, planetary rings, and the shadow zones of gas giants. Earth vessels, Athid hybrids, and converted Council ships moved in perfect coordination, their patterns mimicking the hunting strategies of Earth's pack predators. By the first egg, Admiral Zextal breathed, watching the trap close. How long have they been waiting there? Some for weeks, Chen replied casually. When you don't waste power on massive engines and unnecessary systems, you can run silent for a very long time. The hunters found themselves surrounded by ships they couldn't detect until it was too late. The small vessels attacked from all angles, their coordinated strikes forcing the hunters into normal spacetime where they could be engaged. Look at their response, the Athid representative clicked excitedly. They're trying to form defensive formations. They've never had to defend themselves before. It was true. The hunters' attempts to protect themselves revealed their inexperience as prey. They clustered together, making themselves easier targets. They tried to use their space warping abilities defensively, but this only made them more vulnerable to Earth's phase-locked weapons. Combat data is fascinating, Paddle reported. They're actually trying to imitate our larger ship's tactics, attempting to overwhelm with power rather than adapt. A common mistake, Chen noted. When predators become prey, they often try to fight like they hunt. They don't know how to think defensively. The battle, if it could even be called that, was startlingly one-sided. The hunters, for all their advanced technology and space warping abilities, had no answer for the swarm tactics of ships designed by a species that had evolved on a world where even the plants could kill you. Remarkable. First speaker Merrick's Tai Sol observed. Your ships aren't just hunting them. They're playing with them, testing their responses, Chen corrected. Each engagement teaches us more about their capabilities and limitations, knowledge that we can use to make our tactics even more effective. The tactical display told the story. Red dots representing hunters winked out one after another as the combined fleet demonstrated why Earth's predators were feared across the planet. The small ships moved with impossible coordination, each strike calculated for maximum effect with minimum energy expenditure. Signal from the Athid fleet, Patil announced. They've confirmed what we suspected. The hunters' space warping ability is biological, not technological. They're living creatures, which means they can be studied, understood, and countered. Chen nodded. No matter how advanced they are, they're still bound by the laws of evolution, and Earth wrote the book on evolutionary arms races. As the last hunter signatures disappeared from the tactical display, the council chamber fell silent. The species that had once mocked Earth's small ships now watched in thoughtful silence as those same vessels regrouped, ready to continue the hunt. We owe you an apology, Admiral Chen. First speaker Merrick's Tai Sol said finally. We thought your ships reflected technological limitations. Instead, they represented something we had never considered, the advantage of evolutionary wisdom. No apology needed, Chen replied, already studying the data from the engagement. You weren't the first to underestimate Earth's approach, and you probably won't be the last. The important thing is that you learned. And the hunters? Admiral Zextal asked. Will they learn as well? Chen's smile held no humor. Oh, they're learning. They're learning what every species that ever threatened Earth eventually discovered. When you hunt Deathworlders, you'd better kill them all in the first strike. Because if you don't, she gestured at the tactical display, where Earth's ships and their allies were already moving to new hunting grounds. You just might find yourself becoming the prey. Respect the small. 6 months after first contact, the Galactic Council's emergency session had a very different atmosphere than their first meeting with humanity. Gone were the dismissive glances and barely concealed mockery. Now, when Admiral Chen stood before the council, she faced a chamber filled with respect, and not a small amount of fear. The last hunter group was eliminated in the Perseus Arm yesterday, she reported, updating the tactical display one final time. Long-range scans show no more spatial distortions matching their signatures. It appears they've learned their lesson. Learned their lesson. A young Kraxan diplomat scoffed. We destroy them. No, Chen corrected firmly. We taught them something about galactic ecology. They left because they recognized they were no longer apex predators in this space. The Athid representative clicked in agreement. They evolved as space-borne ambush predators, never facing serious opposition, until they met a species that evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill them. The tactical display showed the final battle statistics. In 6 months of warfare, the combined fleet, using Earth's doctrine and tactics, had eliminated over 300 hunters, while losing only 28 ships. It was beyond decisive. It was evolutionary pressure in action. But surely they'll return. First speaker Merrick's Tai Sol worried. With greater numbers or new tactics. They might, Chen acknowledged. But that's not how predator species usually behave. When they find territory defended by something they can't easily overcome, they typically seek easier hunting grounds. Commander Paddle brought up a new display, showing the modified designs that council races had adopted. Besides, if they do return, they'll find a very different galaxy. Your fleets have evolved. It was true. The council races had transformed their naval doctrine. The massive dreadnoughts weren't gone entirely, but they'd been repurposed as mobile bases for swarms of smaller, more efficient vessels, ships that thought like predators rather than targets. We've learned more than just warfare from you, the Athid representative noted. The principles you've shown us: efficiency over size, adaptation over brute force. They're changing how we approach everything from ship design to colony planning. Which brings us to the purpose of this session. First Speaker Merrick's Ty-Sol announced, the Council has voted to establish a new position, Strategic Evolution Advisory, and we would like Earth to take the lead role. Chen raised an eyebrow. You want us to help guide the military development of the Council races. Not just military, the first speaker's crystalline form sparkled. We've come to realize that your Deathworld perspective offers insights we never considered. Your ships were just the beginning. The chamber's holographic display shifted, showing various council projects already implementing Earth's principles. Space stations redesigned for efficiency rather than grandeur. Colonial outposts built to work with their environments instead of dominating them. Defense systems that thought like predators instead of walls. You've started an evolution, Admiral Zextal admitted, his bioluminescence patterns showing sincere respect. Not just in how we fight, but in how we think. And some of us, the Athid added, have begun to wonder what other wisdom Earth might share. Your species survived a world that should have killed you, evolved alongside predators that should have eaten you, and developed technology that should have destroyed you. Instead, you thrived. Chen shared a knowing look with Patul before addressing the council. Earth would be honored to serve as Strategic Evolution Advisory. But you should understand something. We're still evolving too. Still learning, still adapting. That, first speaker Merrick's Ty-Sol said, is precisely why we want you. The hunters taught us a harsh lesson about stagnation. We became so convinced of our superiority, so certain of our advancement, that we stopped evolving. Your small ships didn't just save us from the hunters, they woke us up. The chamber filled with sounds of agreement from various council races. Even those who had most strongly opposed Earth's methods now nodded in acceptance. There's an old Earth saying, Chen offered, the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. We never stopped learning, because our world never stopped challenging us. Every solution created new problems. Every adaptation led to counter-adaptations. A perpetual arms race, the Athid clicked thoughtfully. Not just with weapons, but with ideas. Exactly, Chen smiled. And now that race has gone galactic. The hunters weren't the first threat to emerge from deep space, and they won't be the last. But next time, she gestured at the tactical display, where council ships of all races were already implementing new patrol patterns based on Earth predator behaviors. Next time, the galaxy will be ready, not because we have the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons, but because we've learned to think like the small creatures that survive on worlds where everything is trying to kill them. To small ships, Admiral Zextal raised a ceremonial flask, his bioluminescence glowing with warm colors. And small creatures, the Athid added. And big ideas, first speaker Merrick's Ty-Sol concluded. As the council chamber filled with various species versions of agreement, Chen watched the tactical display one last time. Somewhere out there, the hunters were probably telling stories about the tiny ships that had driven them from their hunting grounds. Stories that would spread through whatever civilization they represented, teaching them an important lesson about judging threats by their size. After all, Earth had taught that lesson many times before, to predators, to rivals, and now to the galaxy itself. Sometimes the smallest creatures are the ones you need to watch most carefully, especially when they come from a death world.